Hello, this is Leslie, and I am the host of the Why Not Today podcast. This is a podcast to celebrate people who have been courageous and said, Why not today? I started this podcast in honor of my father, Patrick Kane, who often did say, Why not today? I'm based in Reston, Virginia, a planned community right outside of Washington, D.C. And thanks for joining us today. So I'm excited about my guest, Dorian Watson. And I don't know Dorian very well. We met um, about a couple months ago. No, maybe a month ago. And she's going to share kind of her journey of courage. But before we get to know her, I always like to share connections where I met her. So I went to a Smith Mountain Lake Chamber, because I'm involved in that event a couple months ago, and met this woman, Jen. And Jen used to be, she had a practice, I don't know exactly, a psychiatrist, um,
Counseling.
counseling, and then decided to go into coaching. And not only did she go into coaching, but she started a coaching group in Lynchburg, Virginia, and invited me to it. And I ended up going, and it was one of those things that wasn't convenient at all whatsoever, but I made it work. And I met Dorian, and so grateful to hear her story and got to know her. And so we're excited. I'm excited to have you share about you and your journey and your faith, and just you don't have your hope wall behind you today. I
Not
know
today.
when we were on the other day, you had hope behind you. So, Dorian, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little about you and a fun fact.
My name's Dorian Watson. I'm a native of Lynchburg, Virginia. I have uh, been in business for myself for the past 5 years. I run a consultancy called DM Watson Consulting, still niching down to my very specific expertise area. But right now, I'm landed on organizational management. So my goal is to help small business owners to be more efficient with their organizational management and to
We
be able
all
to.
need that, don't we?
Yeah, for sure. So to help them be able to plan and organize and lead and control their businesses better in a way that makes them more profitable and helps just make their lives a little bit easier. So that's me as a professional. I'm a Christian and served the Lord for over 20 years. I'd like to teach the Bible when I have the opportunity. And yeah, fun fact about me, I have a blog. It's called The Pearl of Priesttown. And the blog is named after my mom and dad. My mom's name is Peggy, which is can have a nickname of Pearl. And my dad's name is Preston. And Preston means priest town. So my blog is The Pearl of Priesttown. So
I did not know that. Okay, learn something new about you. I'll have to check it out. So I admire people who can do a blog. My background's in numbers and finance, and
yeah,
doing a blog sounds scary. Everybody keeps saying you should write a book. I'm like, oh, that's a little scary.
yeah,
What
it's
made
not
you want?
always consistent, but I do it when I'm inspired.
Well, good. Well, I met you, and your organization skills are amazing. And tell you are very instrumental in running the group that Jen has started. And when we talked the other day, kind of got to know you, and I love your journey from you were in Northern Virginia in the corporate world, and then decided to take a turn and follow your heart and follow your calling. And so, before we kind of hear all about your story, what does courage mean to you?
Yeah, I thought about this when I saw the question, and it's funny how you don't really define words sometimes. You really
Yeah.
just kind of have an idea of what they mean. And so I looked it up, and one of the definitions was um, just being able to do hard things. And so that really resonated with me. So I'd say courage is the ability to do hard things and just, yeah, just to be in the spot of a situation and just being able to work through it regardless of how difficult it is, just being able to get to the end of it or get through it, and generally you're better on the other side of it, or you come to a place where you're able to move forward. So but yeah, definitely that ability to do hard things would be my
Yeah,
definition
love
of
that.
courage.
Yeah, I've got a friend that I think the name of the Facebook group is "We Can Do Hard Things," and
Mm,
courage. It is doing the hard things, and if people think, "Oh, when you're courageous and brave, you just do it," I'm like, "No, you don't. You have to work through it." And once you
mhm.
get on the other side, we're always so much better. And it's been so fun for me through this podcast just to hear everybody's definitions and what they've done. So let's talk about your career path. You switched. You went to seminary, which is a brave move. So let's talk about where you started and where you've become, and now you've got your own business. But let's talk about kind of the in between and the courageous steps it took, and
Yes.
where God led you.
Yeah, so when I was younger, I didn't really have a huge plan for my life career wise, just kind of going with the flow and I had an older sister, so I like to follow her lead. So if she said she wanted to be something, I wanted to be that too. So she wanted to be a lawyer and a teacher and that kind of thing. So sure, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a teacher. But that's not really what I was designed for. Um, when I got to high school, I kind of thought I might want to own my own business, but didn't really have an idea of what kind of a business or how that would go along or whatever. And so senior year was kind of like, all right, well, what would I want to major in when I go to college? Go to college, what would I do? So landed on business because, hey, regardless of what business you go into, you can get a job with a business degree. So that was my
Yep.
thought process going into college. So went to college and majored in business, chose management because every business needs a manager pretty much. So I was like, no matter what, I should be solid with a business management degree. So got to school, and the Lord really took a hold of my life my freshman year. So was leaning in the direction of, okay, God, like, what are you doing in my life? Getting to know Him better, and was able to just really connect with the Lord on a deeper level than I had before. And my junior year,
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Longwood, and
Okay.
that's a public school here in Virginia, in Central Virginia. It's about 45 minutes from where I live now.
I was wondering with your faith in school at that level if you'd been to Liberty. Right.
Yeah, so when I was younger, I didn't really understand what liberty was all about. When you live really close to something, sometimes you don't really appreciate it.
Like
And
George
so,
Mason here. I'm like, who would ever go there?
yeah, you're like, it's right. There's the school next door. That's too close to home,
Yeah,
basically. It's like,
true.
no, that's too close. So I was like, no, I don't want to really go there. As a matter of fact, I told my dad asked me, about Liberty, and I was like, I never want to go there. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah,
So,
it's funny how what we say we'll never do that we do.
oh yeah, for sure, for sure. So was it my junior year, and the Lord really let me know, like, you cannot do business in the way that you're thinking you're going to do business. Like that is not in alignment with me and my will. Because the '90s, I went to school in the '90s, and the '90s were all about power, power trips, and the power executive, and especially women empowered executives, and she's got the red high heels, and she's going to step on everybody to get to the top, no matter
What is
what
that
it takes.
movie? The Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah, basically, that's kind of the idea that I had, right, when I was a young 19, 20-year-old.
Mhm.
But the Lord said, no, that's not going to be you. And I was like, okay, God, then what am I doing? And so didn't really know what that was going to be. My senior year, a lot of my friends were going to be going to seminary after that, but I knew that I wasn't ready for seminary, and that wasn't the timing of that. But the Lord really laid it on my heart, seminary is going to be for you. And I was like, okay, God, whenever you want me to go, you let me know when, you let me know where, you let me know what I'm going to study. And, I'll just, I'll trust you with that. So that was back in 2001. Fast forward 10 years later, I was living in Northern Virginia, was in a job in security. I was an account representative for a security firm, and was miserable, and was really looking for the next thing, like, Lord, all right, like, this job is not it. I'm really unhappy. I really hate it at this place, but I had, my career was really in the dumps, but my personal life was pretty good. Like, I really had a great faith community, had lots of good friends, really enjoyed where I lived, loved the city I was in, and was thriving in that regard. But the job was really just taking its toll. So it was just kind of like, okay, God, got to do something. And so over a period of a couple of months, the Lord was speaking to me through all kinds of various venues. And that was a really neat time. And one of the tools that he used to help me was actually the Chronicles of Narnia. I had never read that as a child.
Okay.
I'd seen the movies and things, but had never, never read the books. And the books go a little more in depth with some of the spiritual aspects, with the analogies that C.S. Lewis makes. And the Lord just really spoke to me through that series. And so I was just in a time of brokenness and repentance. Eustace's character was really resonating with me in that season, where I had a lot of pride and a lot of different other things I need to shed. Like, he shed that lion skin, that dragon skin in the Voyage of the Dawn.
I read it as a kid, and I have not read it as an adult. I need to go back.
It's a great.
I'm sure it'll be a whole different read.
Oh yeah, it totally will be. It's so great. I mean, it's when you can really apply it to, aspects of yourself and of your faith and of your life and just of your humanity. So I'm like, oh, this is really, it gets deeper than you think it should for a children's book.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, all right, Lord, like, I'm in this place of brokenness. I'm in this place of where you're going to heal me, and you're going to, get me out of this attitude that I'm in. Because when you're in a place that's hard, you tend to get bitter and resentful, and that can really mess you up from a faith
Mhm.
perspective, because then you're not looking to act out of love and compassion like God wants us to. And not where we just let people walk all over us or abuse us in any way, but there's a holy way to respond to adversity. And I was not in that holy way as responding to adversity. But God was so gracious to me in that time. He gave me those books. He told me I wasn't going to get fired from my job. That's how bad it was, right? Like
Oh,
they
wow.
really could have fired me if they had wanted to. And not because I was doing things that was, blatantly, wrong or bad or whatever, but my attitude was just so terrible, just coming in with a, all that kind of stuff. And it was just like, okay,
Well,
like,
corporate America, and this is something I'm passionate about and I share because I left my corporate job 24 years ago. And, it was scary, but I think one of the breaking points, I was already in Mary Kay, so I saw a better world. But one of the breaking points is when I was at work one day, left work in tears, thinking
mhm,
I could never get another job. I just finished
mhm,
my MBA. I have never looked for a job in my life with connections and things. I'm a
mhm,
super hard worker, but I think corporate America's job in a lot of instances is just beat you down.
mhm.
And but the sad part is you got out, I got out, but so many people that are staying there because they're scared.
Yeah.
And if I can encourage anybody through these podcasts to just live your life and enjoy, and do the things that give you joy.
It is. It's super important. Like it really will. It changes you as a person to
Yeah.
be in that kind of environment. And I didn't like who I was then, and that's why those words that I was reading were so powerful for me, because it was like, you become this person. And in the book, if you're not familiar with the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, it's the little boy puts on this bracelet and he becomes a dragon, and that's kind of how it becomes, where you've got this outer shell that's not yourself, and you're stuck in there, and all you can present is dragon, and
Yeah.
it's not your good sweet self, it's
Right.
this bitter, scaly, monster kind of a thing. And it's just like, how did I become this? And so, to be delivered from that was really, it was so amazing just how God orchestrated all of that.
And I love that
And
you
so,
listened and you were paying attention instead of so many
yeah.
people just ignore the signs. I'm very big at, if I see the signs, hear the signs, paying attention to things, but so many people just ignore
Yeah, and it's really easy to just go along with what somebody tells you to do, particularly your boss or your upper management. If they're
them.
telling you to do things that are not in alignment with your values, or just aren't good, and they're just not good business practices,
Right.
you know. And if you're looking around and paying attention to how your business and organization is functioning, you can see where it's going to be a problem, not just for you, but for your clients or your customers.
Right.
And if you don't value your clients and customers, well, you need to check that anyway if you're not valuing them. But if your organization isn't set up to really give them the best experience, you really through all of that with, you can find a different organization or
Yeah.
figure out something else to do so that you can, make money. And I understand that that's a very difficult thing to do when you're, trying to pay rent, you're trying to pay your bills, you're trying to, you may have medical bills that are in the background, debt from student loans or other things. I understand all that kind of struggle. So I know it seems like it's not easy. And no, it isn't easy, but it's not impossible
No.
to figure out
You just
something.
got to
And
trust
yeah.
and let it go, is what I've found in my life. So,
And I think that's a really important lesson I learned with my first job out of college was you can leave. It's your
mhm,
choice, and you have permission to leave. Because a
yeah.
lot of people will tell you in your jobs, your manager might tell you, or your colleagues might tell you, or even your bank account kind of might tell you, hey, you can't leave this job. You can't leave. And that was one lie that I had to squash real quick, because it was like, no, you cannot stay in places that are really sucking your soul away, unless you've been given a supernatural grace to stay there, or a particular instruction. For me, I'm following the Lord's instructions. And if He doesn't tell me to stay somewhere, I'm not staying, because
Yeah. I
it's
know
not
when
going
I
to
quit
be.
my job, people are like, what are you going to do? How are
Hmm.
you going to live? And I literally looked, I'm like, okay, I knew I could sell enough products to live.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I might have to eat at my mom's and skip Starbucks and not go shopping, or,
Hmm.
take out all that. But, we can live better, and when
We
there's joy.
can. We really can. We really can. So it all
So,
came to a head.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, it all came to a head at one point, and I was just like, Lord, like really, I was literally on my face on the floor praying, like, God, like you got to really intervene here. I really got to get out of here. So he had told me I wasn't going to get fired, and one Saturday morning, I was just at home and got up, and the Lord said, apply to Liberty today. Because he had been talking to me about seminary that whole 10-year period. I've been, keeping my eyes open, looking at schools and programs and, cities and things and just trying to figure out, where to go or whatever. He had opened a door through my church that I was attending at the time, and they had started a satellite program with Dallas Theological Seminary, and they had a class offering. So I was like, oh, well, maybe this is what the Lord wants me to do, to go through the satellite campus and go through Dallas Theological. So I took that class, and it was an amazing class, really loved it, and wanted to pray through the next semester. And so that was all. So I took the class in the fall. In the spring, I was praying through the semester to see, okay, Lord, do you want me to do this satellite program, or do you have something else in mind? So this was in March. And that Saturday morning, the Lord told me, apply to Liberty University today. So it wasn't just apply to Liberty. No, today. You need to apply today. So I applied that day. I got accepted. And so in May, I moved out. I moved from Northern Virginia back to Lynchburg. Like I said, I'm from Lynchburg originally. Had talked to my parents about it. My dad had always said, you can always come back home, whenever you want, because, your dad just wants you home. So he was like, come on back home if you want to, that's fine. And so came back home, didn't have a job, just moved back in with my mom and dad, and didn't know what I was going to be doing exactly. Hadn't figured out what the major was going to be, but had been accepted, moved back home, and was like, okay, God, like, what are we doing? And so the Lord provided for my tuition and my expenses and everything. Told me I wasn't going to get a job because I was looking for a job, because, school's not cheap, even if you have tuition or whatever, you still have other things you need to get and whatnot. And the Lord provided opportunities and money just out of nowhere, like literally out of nowhere, just would get money for things. So it was just such an amazing time of trust and dependency on him. And he really taught me, you need trust me, I've got you, and you really can do this. So, and just had the best time in seminary. It was a 2-year program that I was in, and got my master's in theological studies. And then moved on into a position after that where I worked for Liberty University for a season and was helping the student population there. So really, it was a really amazing time just how he was, moving things and providing and just getting me to be able to trust him more.
Yeah, and that takes so much courage. And I can pinpoint many, many times in my life that, I just we try so hard to plan.
Mm-hmm.
Different than my plan. And, he's got it. He's got my back. And, he always does. A lot of courage. Seems like my internet's going in and out. Are we disappearing, or do you see that?
You were freezing just a little bit, but you're back now.
Well, hopefully we're okay. Looks like it's not so strong, but that's okay. This is not perfect. That's the beauty of why not today. All right. That's so you went to seminary, which I love the trust, and you did that. And then God provided. Like the same thing with me, and I've shared this on this podcast before. I quit my job November of '99, and it was really not. It was a date of just arbitrary date based on something silly. Going shopping with a friend. I don't even like to shop, but I quit my job and I stepped out in faith. And God had another plan. My dad had a major stroke that next April, and I was able to be there with my family. I was able to take off. I didn't have to ask permission to take time off, and if I had not stepped out on faith and had that courage to say, why not today? It was kind of like, your decision to go to seminary, like God told you today, like, we need to listen to those and not argue. Yeah. And what a different path your world has taken because of that.
It really has. And what you just said really resonates with me too. I had a lot of family things that came up when I moved back home. And had I not been living with my family at that time, I would have had to travel, 3.5 hours or so, or I would have missed certain things. And, trying to figure out how to take time off and to be there. And with as many things that happened, like, I don't know if I would have had enough time to take off, to be able to do the things that I needed to do. My
And
sister
that
was, yeah.
the flexibility and aligning your life with your values of what's important to you is so crucial. And,
Hmm.
I've been full-time Mary Kay with this flexibility for 24 years. So that's just the life I live. But unfortunately, I had unexpected death of a friend last week.
Hmm.
And it was not a family member. And if I was working for somebody else, I couldn't have said on Sunday when I found out, I'm leaving tomorrow and I'm gone for a week.
Hmm.
And it's been, it was a week ago Sunday, and I really haven't gotten all the way back into work yet. And that's
Yeah.
okay. I'm not getting fired and I have that flexibility. There was no question. But if I would have been working for somebody else, it would not have happened like that.
Hmm.
And that's, that for me, that is just invaluable to have that flexibility to be with family and or friends and do the things that mean something to us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So then you left. So you worked in a church. You worked at Liberty, and then you started
Hmm.
start your own business and kind of a different. So I'm sure whatever you learned in seminary and the church and all that, you apply to what you do now, but kind of a different trajectory. So how'd you get there? I love hearing people's stories in their path.
Yeah, so I was working for a church. I was working in their administrative office, and I felt like I needed a shift. Working for the Lord is awesome, but it's a really different environment, especially when you're a business mind. And as much as I love ministry as a non-business entity. And so the two areas can converge more often than one would think. And the way that they converge it can get really complicated. And so I was having some frustrations with the way those two things were converging, particularly with the demands of ministry. Sometimes ministry is more 24/7 than 9 to 5. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was finding like things that I needed to be doing for my position were falling outside of my work hours. And it was just kind of like, okay, I can't keep going over these with this crossover with the particular structure that we had at that time. So it was just like, this isn't really a good fit for me anymore. And I thought, I would really like to help people with these kinds of things, but I'd like to keep my faith ministry separate from that. So I was like, let me
Right.
separate these two things. I'd like to be able to come to church and worship on Sunday and not, get pulled into
Keep
something
working.
work related. Exactly. So chose to make that separation and decided to go into administration. Administration is one of my favorite areas of business to focus on. And so all the behind the scenes organizational things, that's all the things that I love to get into. So decided to become a consultant. I talked with a coach as I was trying to make the transition because I didn't want to leave my church in the lurch, with nobody to come take my place. So I was going to
Right.
train my replacement and all of that. So I worked all that out. And I didn't want to just go into business blind because I'd never run my own business before and I'd never done what I wanted to do as a business before. So I had some test clients first just to see if that was something I liked doing and, kind of figure out the trajectory of where I wanted to take my business. And
What a great
um,
idea, test clients.
yeah,
Love it.
I'm a chronic planner. And so,
Well, be careful with that. I have learned recently, especially, I am a planner, and
yeah,
yeah, our
the
plans.
Lord, yeah, he's really worked with me on that. And so it's everything is a fluid plan now. It's like, here's
Yeah,
an idea of a plan that I have. God, if it's going to shift, that's fine. So whatever you want
exactly.
to do with my plan, you can go ahead and do that. So, but just had some test clients first and talked to a coach who helped me figure out that I want to be a consultant versus mainly a coach or a mentor or something else. So he helped me get those ideas in alignment. And so Dorian Watson Consulting was founded in 2018, and I've been on
Love
the
it.
journey, the entrepreneurial journey ever since. Still figuring out who I am as a business owner and as a business person. But like you said, I love the flexibility of it. It allows me to be able to help people, but it also allows me to focus on other things that I need to be doing. My ministry is a part of that. And so some of that really just is being available to people whenever they need to talk about things or, they just need to meet up for something. And so that gives me that flexibility to do that. So
That's awesome. And I love that you're in the coaching world as part of the administrative, you're helping coaches with their, business. And, that's important. We all have creative ideas for businesses, but you got to have the business part behind it.
mhm.
And people have asked me, like, what are you doing as a Mary Kay consultant? You have an MBA and I'm in business. And I'm like, I'm a smart businesswoman. I'm running my own business.
That's right.
But, it does take the systems behind it to make it successful. Um,
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
everybody has a system, whether they recognize it as one or not.
Could be a bad system.
That's right. It very well could be.
Yeah. So what would you say to encourage somebody else? And I love the word encourage because it's like give somebody courage.
Yeah, for sure. It's really just kind of just do it in a way. A lot of times we have a lot of doubt behind things, and I've gone through a season where I doubted myself after going through some different life experiences. I'd lost some of the confidence that I had because a lot of my confidence previously was based in pride, and so it's really difficult to just trust yourself. But I would really encourage people to trust yourself. You know what your values are. You know what you are trying to accomplish. And if you're a Christian, you know that God has a plan for you, and you're probably seeking that out. Trust God has a plan for you, and trust that you are capable of following the plan that He's got lined up for you. And have faith that you can really do it. Believe that you can do it. Have faith that you can do it, and trust yourself that you're able to execute it. Even if you don't have all the tools right this second, right? Most things are a process where you're learning about it and you're getting information. Trust that you can get the information. Trust that you can learn it. Just have that. Try to trust yourself to do those things that you need to do, and you'll gain that ability to do that hard thing. It'll be less and less hard as you go along. Now, some things really do just slap you in the face. Right? Unexpected family losses, or health incidents and those kinds of things. Those are tough to navigate. They really are. But trust that if you're still alive, there's something that you can do.
And that's what my dad always said after he had several strokes, and he had a long journey of it. But he's like, you know what? God's not done with me yet. And he knew he still had a purpose. And and people would say, "How are you?" And he's like, "I'm on this side of the grass," which is always a good thing. Yeah, I love that. And I think the whole theme of what we talked about today is trust. And I love doing these podcasts because I get to hear people's stories. But so often, more than anything, I'm doing these podcasts because it's a message I exactly need to hear today now. And it's like, okay, God put you in my path a month ago. Who knew that I needed you today? With what's happened in my life recently, and just the trust factor. And just got to trust. So, where can people find you? And I know we're going to share all your contact in the show notes, but if someone's looking for some business administrative, do you do virtual? Do they have to be in Lynchburg?
No, I can do virtual, or I can do in person. If you're in the general area of Central Virginia, I can get there. If we plan accordingly, I can get pretty much anywhere. So I'm available both virtually and in person. You can reach me at dmwatsonconsulting.com for all your organizational management needs.
All right. And I know you're a whiz at LinkedIn. You're going to have to teach me how to do that, because that's not something I've figured out. So, but the Why Not Today podcast, you can find on every channel. We have a website, Why Not Today podcast. We have swag. If you want a t-shirt, a cup, a vinyl, we're looking at some other things that we're going to add, and just share it with a friend. If it's encouraged you today, the podcast, share it, review it, like it. That's how we're going to grow this podcast. And Dorian, thank you so much for your story and of courage. And I just love the faith and business combined, and just the trust. So
thanks so much, Leslie. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. And everybody listening, watching, just say why not today. We are not promised tomorrow. I know that more than anything. And enjoy your life and say why not today. So thanks again, and say why not today. And I got to figure out how to stop it.